Invite you to turn your Bibles, please, to Numbers. We'll begin in pretty quickly into the 32nd chapter, but I want us to look at one thing as we close the 31st chapter. All of the prey and the booty, as the Bible calls it sometimes, the things that they conquered from the Midianites, it was to be refined. That which could pass through the fire, it was to be refined. That which could not be washed with water. There was the Midianites that God was bringing to an end. And we talked about last time about the fact that little boys were killed, little baby boys of the Midianites. God said, destroy them. And they were to keep the virgin girls, and they would divide them up, and 32 would go into the house of God as servants of the priest. The idea of God killing babies, of servanthood of women, how does that fit with our day and time? Some like abortion, so they're hypocrites if they have a problem with that. They're killing babies all the time. But the idea of servanthood and all of those things, this is the part of why we study the Old Testament, because we're getting a picture of who God is. God is holy. And the reason the little boys were destroyed was the fact that they would grow up to be idolaters. And here, maybe in their innocent stage, little babies, God was preparing them for eternity, not for the things of this world. We don't look at it that way. We look at it from my standpoint, my time, my children, my place, and therefore I don't want to serve a God like that. But God's wisdom is greater than ours, and he was destroying the idolatrous nations. And as a holy God, they had completely gone away from that. They had caused the people of Israel to sin. And we saw that with Balaam encouraging the people to commit fornication. And God was destroying them, bringing them in. We got a whole chapter about that. But that doesn't mean that God is not merciful and kind and holy. He's wise. But that's the God of the Bible. And we don't make apologies for that. We just try to realize that from the long-term perspective of God, God is holy, and he was going to destroy those who had lain with the idolatrous men, those women who had. That was the problem with the Israelites. And the boys were not going to be reproducing into a new nation. And the virgin girls were the only ones that were saved. And they would be divided up among the people of Israel. And as I said, we saw that they would be servants, to be maids of people that were overseeing the temple. And remember that Eli's sons were committing fornication with the women outside of the temple of God. Unholy things that were taking place in his day when he didn't train and teach his boys how they should act. So we've got that, how that was divided up. But one of the interesting things, they had destroyed 5 kings of Midian. And we'll notice in Numbers, the 31st chapter, an amazing point that is made by Moses. And they said unto Moses, thy servants have taken the sum of the men of war that are under our charge, and there lacketh not one man of us. What is that telling us? Did they lose anybody in that war? No. God said destroy them. And they destroyed 5 kings. And we're going to be looking at, they're going to take the nations, and that's what's going to be enticing to Reuben and Gad, and Manasseh will be the half tribe that would be involved in this too. They're going to take their land because of what was taking place here. But they didn't lose anybody in war. Took Jericho, there were people that fought there. Because of Ai, God would destroy some of the men that would fight there because they had sin in their camp. God's holy. And we make judgments sometimes upon God. You're supposed to be merciful and kind, but God is. He doesn't deny himself, and we don't deny him. And we look at, well, how could God do that? A holy God can do that. And a God who looks for eternity would be a blessing to the little boy babies. But that's not the way we think. We've got to get our thinking in tune with God. And that's why we study our Bibles. And I hope that you've been enjoying this study. I have, because I've learned a lot of things. Some things I forgot, some things I really didn't know. And it's very helpful. All right, chapter 20. All right, question number 20. Chapter 32. Why did the tribes of Reuben and Gad want to stay on the east side of the Jordan River and not be brought over the Jordan? So we're in the plain of Moab now, and here they are destroying the Midianites and taking over with the Amorites. They would destroy them. We'll talk about that in a moment. And now here's this land on the east side. And we ask the question, why did they want to stay here and not go over into the promised land, the land of Canaan? What does the Bible say here in Numbers 32? They had livestock, didn't they? And this is good land. Who's that remind you of? Hey, I think about Lot. And Abraham's what? You just pick what you want. Lot said, I like Sodom and Gomorrah area. Why? Because a lot of water there, it's good pasture land, and you forget about the spiritual consequences and the influence that would be there. And was that a bad choice for Lot? From the perspective of what we see take place afterwards, after he got that? I mean, here's his family, and what kind of impact did it have upon Lot's wife? She turned a pillar of salt because she looked back. God said, don't look back. Well, that's kind of where her heart had been. And maybe it was just, I can't believe all this stuff falling on this city. All the brimstone and all that. It wasn't, I like to go by and see a car wreck. I think her heart was such that indeed it was attached there. The daughters and the son-in-laws thought it was crazy. And they're going to stay. But she turned her back. But it was that impact upon them. And did God have to, as angels have to get a hold of Lot and the girls to get them out of town? Dragged them out of there. This Lot, whose soul was vexed because of all the unrighteousness of God. God said that about Lot. His righteous soul was vexed, seeing all that sin. But you get captivated by it. You get the idea that's where your heart is. That's what Lot did. Well, I think about these people. They're wanting to pick land because of the same issue. And when you had so many sheep and oxen they had taken from the Midianites, I mean, it was a numerous point. That would be something wise to think about. No one's condemning that. But a lot of times we've got to realize, is that the ultimate reason why I'm moving to town? Is that all that I care about? What about the spiritual? What about the churches there? What about how it's going to be involved in raising my family? We have a local church that we can have confidence in. Is that even on our radar when we're taking new jobs and so forth? It should be. And we learn lessons from Abraham and Lot. But here we see the fact that God's going to allow that, and Moses is going to be upset. And then the issue is going to be solved in a way that is pleasing to all. So the point about the livestock, notice in verse 1, and when they saw the land of Jazer, remember that, and the land of Gilead, that behold, the place was a place for cattle. The children of Gad, the children of Reuben, came and spake unto Moses and to Eleazar the priest, unto the princes of the congregation, saying, here's the cities, Adrath, Dahon, Jazer, again, remember that. Namah, and remember Heshbon in a few minutes, we'll talk about that. And Eliah and Sebon and all these cities. And the land which Jehovah smote before the congregation of Israel is a land for cattle, and thy servants have cattle. And they say, if we have found favor in thy sight, let this land be given unto thy servants for possession, and bring us not over the Jordan. And we began to realize that why was this request wearisome to Moses?
They were deserting their brethren and not helping them.
That's right. When I first read this, I said, Moses, you shouldn't be so angry, because I knew what's going to happen as it's solved. And it's as if we all along was going to go over there and fight. And I said, I think I'm reading that into the text. I think I'm reading it because that's how it's solved. Why do you judge their motives, Moses? They're pure. Because how the issue is going to be solved is indeed very good. But Moses has another viewpoint, which at this moment may have been something that needed to be fleshed out. And I will go that route instead of what I thought, first of all, Moses, I thought he was being a little harsh to them. I don't think so. When I go back and just read it and realize I am already jumping to another issue, jumping to another conclusion based upon something that may needed to be fleshed out first. That you better have the right motive. And they end up doing that. So Moses said unto the children of Gad and the children of Reuben, notice Manasseh he hadn't addressed yet. Before this is over, Manasseh is going to get to be on the east side as well. Half of that tribe would be there. Other half would be in the land of Canaan. But right now, it's Reuben and Gad. Shall your brethren go to war, and shall ye sit here? I said, no, they're going to take care of things, and then they'll come back. That had not been expressed yet. And it may have been something that they were not thinking about yet. They will get online with Moses. But I can see Moses being upset because what's his reasoning? Which I just got to pass over. Moses, I'll criticize Moses. No, I'm not. David?
They would discourage the other Israelites from making possible.
Yes.
It's like, well, if they don't have to fight, then why are we fighting?
And this discouragement is the issue in it. And where does Moses go back to show that, hey, we've been discouraged before?
Previous generation when they didn't want to.
That's right. When they're supposed to take the land of Canaan, that's why we have 38 more years of wandering in the wilderness that the book of Numbers is talking about. They were leaving Egypt, and they're going to go into the land of Canaan. When they got to Kadesh Barnea, we find that, well, there's giants there. Yeah, the fruit's wonderful, all of those things, but giants are there, and we looked like grasshoppers before them, and they were afraid. Fear overcame faith. It does that a lot of times in the history of mankind. It continues to do it today. What will the people think? I'll lose my family if I stand for what is right. Fear overcomes our faith in trusting God that it work out to the best of His glory. But that's what he's, and this is a valid point. We've been there before, people, about discouragement. And he says, wherefore do you discourage the heart of the children of Israel from going over into the land which Jehovah hath given them? Thus did your fathers, when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. For when they went unto the valley of Eshcol and saw the land, they discouraged the heart of the children of Israel, that they should not go into the land which Jehovah had given them. And Jehovah's anger was kindled in that day. And he swears, saying, surely none of the men that come out of Egypt from 20 years old and upward shall see the land which I swear unto Abraham, unto Isaac, unto Jacob, because they have not wholly followed me. Except who? Who's next? The exception, Caleb and Joshua, their leader. Well, God, I know you may look at discouragement, he's upset with us, but did he fulfill his promise when he said no one from 20 years old and upward are going to see the land of Israel? They're going to, an idea of they're going into that promised land. Did that literally come true? Why are we studying Numbers? We're filling in 38 years of that issue. And the old generation was dying out. Some were dying out not because of the sin that they've done. It's because of their own sins. But that generation that had a chance to stand up, and the babies, the 20 years old and younger, being that not in leadership role, they're going to get to go in the land. Isn't that fair? Yeah, well, that's fair, God, but this other killing babies over here is not fair. It's God. And we've got to, we work within His ways. But this will be a discouragement. And he mentions Joshua, the son of Nun. That was of the tribe of Ephraim. And have wholly followed Jehovah. They wholly follow Jehovah, or you do not please God. Noah built the ark according to all that God commanded him. Not just partially. A few cubits here. I think it ought to be over here. Let's don't use gopher, let's use pine. Oak would be good. Cedar would be great. No, he did all that God commanded him. And the Bible speaks about Caleb and Joshua having a different heart. God judges us in our hearts. It affects our actions, but he sees the heart. And that's why we got to purify that heart. That's why we got to say, God, do I want to serve God that I'm making my image? I don't like what you did, the Midianites. Or do we purify our hearts and follow his wisdom and realize that we're trusting that it will be good at the end for everybody, especially for God. But I can see why this was wearisome to Moses. And not something we ought to criticize Moses because we know the end of the story. So Moses, come on, get over that. They're going to stay. They're not going to stay. They're going to go fight first and come back. We don't know that yet. But when we see the question, how was the issue resolved? How was it resolved next? They go fight and they go back. What did they provide for before they left? So they don't reject their own families. Verse 17, but we ourselves will be ready armed to go before the children of Israel until we have brought them into their place. And our little ones shall dwell in the fortified cities because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return to our houses. The children of Israel have inherited every man his inheritance. For we will not inherit with them on the other side of Jordan and forward, because our inheritance is fallen to us on this side of the Jordan eastward. We're not going to do that because we're going to have the part on the eastern side. And so that's what they, again, so verse 23, but if you will and do so, behold, you have sinned against Jehovah, and be sure your sin will find you out if you continue that way. But build your cities for your little ones, and folds for your little sheep, or for your sheep, and do that which hath proceeded out of your mouth. And the children of Gad and the children of Reuben spake unto Moses, saying, the servants will do as my Lord commanded. Our little ones, our wives, our flocks, and all of our cattle shall be there in the cities, where? Gilead. But thy servants will pass over every man that is armed for war before Jehovah to battle, as my Lord said. Issue solved. Godly answer. Following God, following his servant Moses, that indeed our little ones are protected, our cattle, our flocks will be there in the cities of Gilead. But we're going to go fight, and we're not going to come back until when? They have their inheritance, and we'll take ours next. You wait at the end of the line, you'll get your food at the potluck. Yeah, okay. We'll let the children go first, and some we let the older people go first. All those things we'll take last, and that's the right thing to do. Let others take care of their needs. We're taking care of other people's needs before we serve ourselves. There's that heart of the servant, and that's indeed what they were involved in doing, and that pleased God. And it would that be a discouragement or an encouragement to the men fighting the battles for the land in Canaan? I would be encouraged, wouldn't you? They wouldn't play on no life for me. Brethren of Israel, we're united on that, and that becomes very important. And that's how that issue was resolved. Any questions you want to add to that? Notice in verse 26, Moses gave charge concerning Eleazar the priest, and to Joshua the son of Nun, the heads of the fathers' houses of the tribes of Israel. And Moses said unto them, if the children of Gad, the children of Reuben, will pass over the Jordan, every man that is armed to battle before Jehovah, and the land shall be divided before you, even ye shall give the land of Gilead for a passage. But if they obey not and pass over if they will not pass over with you armed, they shall have possessions among you in the land of Canaan. And the children of Gad and the children of Reuben answered, saying, Jehovah has said unto thy servant, that shall we do, and we will pass over armed before Jehovah in the land of Canaan, and the possession of our inheritance shall remain with us beyond Jordan. So what do we see in verse 33? Moses gave unto them, even to the children of Gad and to the children of Reuben, and unto whom? For the first time in this section, Manasseh. That, we talk about the two tribes of Joseph, Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim. Manasseh had become a very large tribe, and so it was there that they would possess half of it as well. I mean, half tribe will be over on that side of the Jordan River, east side, as well as the west, because of numbers. So it wasn't the idea of showing wisdom because we got cattle, we got a lot of people, and we need grazing space. It wasn't that that's outlawed because Lot made a bad choice. Sometimes that's a wise move to make. But we got to look beyond the fact of just that man's wisdom and realize that might be good judgment. But here's the idea: it's going to be good judgment. Manasseh's going to join you on that side, and therefore that will be fine. Any comments or questions on that? Okay. Question number 23. What defeated kingdoms and the kingdom's landmass was distributed to the children of Gad, Reuben, and the half tribe of Manasseh? And we'll just kind of take a look at a map. We're on the east side of the Jordan River. See if that's large there, space there. Moabites and Edom, and so they're to the south, especially of the Dead Sea. But what land we just read about do we picture here on this map that they're going to take over? They did the 5 kings of Midian, took them out of the way, and they planted the plains of Moab. So remember the city of Heshbon we just read about? And Jazer, we read about that as well. That's that particular city. That was part of the Amorites. And that's what we're looking at here, is that would be destroyed. So Og, king of Bashan, see Bashan up there? Sihon, king of Amorites, see the Amorites there? That would be the land, and we connect to the south of the Sea of Galilee on the east side unto the Dead Sea, to the Arnon River, which is the borderline between the Amorites and Moab. We've already seen in Numbers where these kings were destroyed. Turn back with me in Numbers, the 21st chapter. Sihon and Og is the key in these places, and this is right before the events of Balaam. But here we pick up where we find it's already occurred, and we just pick up, and I think it'll make sense to us as we look at this map. Verse 31, thus Israel dwelt in the land of the who? Amorites. And Moses spent to spy out Jazer, that would be where Bashan was. And he took the towns thereof and drove out the Amorites that were there. And they turned and went up by the way of Bashan, and Og the king of Bashan went out against them and all of his people to battle in Edrei. And Jehovah said unto Moses, fear him not, for I have delivered him into thy hand, and all his people and his land. And thou shalt do to him as thou hast done unto whom? Sihon, king of the Amorites, who dwell in Heshbon. There's our city. So they smote them and his sons, all of his people, his sons, all of his people. Holy God is destroying them because of their unholiness. And there was alone left, and it said there was none left him remaining. That's what a holy God does. And they possessed his land. And the children of Israel journeyed and encamped in the plains of Moab beyond the Jordan at Jericho. And all of a sudden we are in tune with people hearing about these conquests. You got Balaam's the king wanted the deed of Moab, said, I'm scared, and I want the people cursed. Now, we didn't study Numbers, and we just pick up that story. I don't know if we'll put it all together, but when you put it all together, I can see why here we've just destroyed the Amorites. Bashan, all the way down to Moab. And here are the Moabites, and they're scared to death that indeed we're next. And therefore curse the people. So as we learn from Revelation, we learn from the New Testament, How did God finally curse the people of Israel? Not because they were people of God. God would not allow Balaam to do it, but when Balaam taught Balak to cause the people to commit fornication, all of a sudden you cross the line with a, what kind of God? Holy God. He's holy. There's no sin and no darkness in him. And when he did that, God cursed his people. His own people, he would curse them, and he died. Because God is a holy God. And we get that first in our mind. Holiness is first. He wants our hearts purified from within. And he wants us to be from within, to be holy unto God. Seeing you purified your souls and your obedience unto the truth. Now love your brethren fervently, without hypocrisy. But inside we purify our souls. And he says, cleanse your souls. And we have an opportunity to cleanse our sins through Jesus Christ. But here was the land that was indeed going to be dwelt in, because they've been destroyed already. And they've already been there. So now our children will be protected here. We'll build our folds. We'll protect them. And God allows that for them to take care of their own, because he's a righteous God. And then you go armed, and we're not coming back until that battle is over. So here's the land that's been distributed to them. You'll find Manasseh at the top, Gad and Reuben in the area of which was conquered by the Amorites. And so you have Jazer up in the area of Bashan. You got Heshbon. They were mighty cities. Now they belong to the Israelites. But we're going to fight the battle in Canaan first, and then we're going to come back, and we will then dwell in our land as God has promised. So there'll be the 2.5 tribes on the east side. Now we won't get this to today, but how were the cities of refuge divided? There were 6 of them. And we'll talk about that later, but there were 6 of them. And talk about the wisdom of God. Talk about the fact there were 3 on the west side of the Jordan River, and there were 3 on the east side. And we'll see that fulfilled Scripture. That fulfilled prophecy. And all these events take place. How does that work out? But it ends up being there are 3 cities, and they are strategically located. North, middle, south. Where you could escape if you killed somebody accidentally. And the avenger of that person's blood, they cannot touch you if you stay in that city. Of course, you had to stay there till the high priest died. That might be a lot of years. But if you escape there, you're free game with the avenger of blood. But it's a city of refuge. The axe handle went off while we're chopping wood, and I didn't mean to do that, and the avenger of his blood's after me. I'll flee. Where can I get to? I got 3 on one side and 3 on the other side, and they're pretty strategically set apart where you could get there. What God provided for that. But if there hadn't been occupation on the east side, if there hadn't been cities of refuge on the east side, God would not have fulfilled the prophecy that he makes earlier. So that becomes an interesting point as well. And but that's, you see where the land, you got Edom, Moab, but you're going to have the Amorites in Bashan. They've been destroyed by this time as they dwell in the plains of Moab. That's where we are. Well, that's back earlier. Yeah. Far back there numbers. Yeah. And we have events that are taking place in between, historical things taking place that he's talking about now. We're picking up now. Now they're going to possess the land. So that gives us some coherency about things. Any comments you'd like to make? All right, let's go back to the last verse. Question: Who were the emptied cities and villages named after? Because that's how this chapter ends. Just talk back up in verse 39. And the children of Machir, the son of Manasseh, went to Gilead and took it, and disposed the Amorites that were therein. And Moses gave Gilead unto Machir, the son of Manasseh, and he dwelt therein. And Jair, the son of Manasseh, went and took the towns thereof, and called them Havajair. And Nobab went and took Kenath and the villages thereof, and he called it what? After his own name. Well, if you conquered a city, could you name it after yourself? We probably would. I conquered it. It's my city. We're indeed possessing that. So when they involved in possessing these things, they begin to name it after themselves. You've got, we're dwelling in their cities. And they were able to take over all the infrastructure that they had. And they began to name it after themselves. I think that's probably maybe what we would do. All right. As we enter into chapter 8, when we read all these cities, did you pay attention to them? And this is something, when you read your daily Bible reading, and of course, you can let me read it for you, because we got the Bible on our website where I'm reading it. You may not like my accent, but it's there. I don't like it because I had to determine early on how I was going to pronounce all these names. And I went to the Encyclopedia Bible, ISBE, but I didn't realize that their pronunciation was after the English. They're after the English, not American, English. And you begin to say weird things. Woman instead of woman. And I wish I hadn't done that. Because I hear it today, I say, oh my, what is that guy doing? But that's the way it went. And the reason being is because every one of the words in the Bible, the ISB, it had a pronunciation key. And so I was able, I'm going to be consistent. And so some words sound a little weird, but it's after the English, okay? I'd be a hit in Britain if they would ever listen to it. Probably messed that one up too. But anyway, that's the thought that we have here. So I would read these names, and I would just read them because I had a deadline. I've got to get this out. We're trying to make progress, get so many chapters a week. But when you study them, you have an energy to study them. And then you begin to realize what's left out here. There's some big events. Kadesh Barnea. You won't read that here. And what we're about to do is 42 cities. If you had to read 42 of these names, you're going to look at 42 cities that indeed something happened. And what happened is they encamped there in their 40 years of wandering. So we're going to come out of Egypt, and we're going to go to Mount Horeb. We're going to go to Kadesh Barnea, but he doesn't say Kadesh Barnea. He has another name. And I'm curious, why is that? Well, I know, and I want you to know, but not today. But it's that type of thing that said, something's missing here. Why is that? And we're not going to dwell on it. I've done all that groundwork because I realize that might not be something you think about. But I'm alarmed when I say, well, Kadesh Barnea was a big deal in this 38 years of wandering and the 40 years. Why is it even mentioned as an encampment? Well, it is. It has another name. But we get to look at it, and what I've learned is that the maps that we have in our Bibles, in our books, there are all sorts of different ways that the people of Israel wandered in the wilderness. And I thought, well, just one. It's the one I learned. That's it. Then I realized, no, when I follow this, I got a little movement here that solved my problem with how this thing unfolds in chapter 33. So we're gonna look at that, and I'll eliminate maybe the problems that I had and follow, but we'll pick up, and these questions are involved in dealing with that too. But as we go there, just ask the question, who commanded Moses to write down the encampments of the Israelites from their leaving Egypt unto their encampment in the plains of Moab, which would cover the 40 years. We're in the 11th month right now as we study Numbers. So we're at the end of that. Moses is still alive in Numbers, and he'll very soon, that 40th year will end, and he won't be able to go in the land of Canaan. So, who commanded to do that? God did. So take it up with God if you don't like it. I'm not going to do that. He said, these are the journeys of the children of Israel when they went forth out of the land of Egypt, and their host under the hand of Moses and Aaron. And Moses wrote their goings out according to their journeys. So their goings out. That means he didn't name all the places that they went through, but where they encamped, where they're leaving one camp, going out, their journeys. I'm going to another place and encamp, going to another place and encamp. These were their encampments. And he mentions 42 of them in the list. And the commandment of Jehovah, these are their journeys according to their goings out. And they journeyed from Ramesses in the first month. So we're getting them in Egypt, and we'll find out, we're going to ask the question, why that city? Why do you start there? And all, 603,000 some odd fighting men are leaving there, and they had to go from a certain place. That's not counting the children. 2 million, close to 3 million, about ready to leave. When we had the hurricane back in the day, when we had all of the people on I-45 trying to get out of town, we had 2 million. And it was a disaster. We were in it. And we didn't make it out of city limits hardly. But after 27 hours, we were still trying to get to East Texas, and that's where the storm went too. God's didn't let us get that far. But the thing is that here were that many people going. So why wouldn't they pick a place that they would all start from? That they could travel from Egypt to be there, and that's when they leave. That makes sense to me. And he picks that town. And we'll talk about that. But from then on, we see all of these wanderings taking place. And you say, my eyes are, I don't know how to say that word. Maybe Mr. Fite does. And no, he's got an English accent. I don't like that. So I don't know what you're going to do. But I would just read them, try to do the best you can. And we'll find them in verse 36. They journeyed from the Ezion Geber. And we'll see that on the map. And that's where it gets interesting on their travels. And I want you to, I think I've got a solution that solved my problem. Maybe it will solve yours too. And then verse 38, Aaron the priest goes up into Mount Hor. Well, Mount Hor, we'll see where that is. And why is it put here in this context when in verse 41, they journeyed from Mount Hor and camped in Zalmanah, and they journeyed from back to the numbers, naming the place of encampment. And we continue on through almost the remainder of the chapter. So we're not going to get on that today, but is there any questions you might have while we looked at it and what's in store for us? And you try to find Kadesh Barnea. That didn't come up to me. That was a big encampment, and yet it's there, but it's another name, and that has a history too. I think is interesting. We'll talk about that. Question number 2, when did the Israelites begin their departure from Egypt? So the first month, and it's the Passover, isn't it? That is taking place. Look at, I think I put in there, Deuteronomy 16 and verse 1. Here's a new generation, and they're being reminded. He says, observe the month of Abib and keep the Passover unto Jehovah thy God. For in the month of Abib, Jehovah thy God brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt. What time of day? By night. And that indeed, on that 14th day of that first month, that would be the first month. It's kind of like our January, but it's not like the winter seasons and so forth in the summer. This will be your first. And you're going to have the Passover and the night, the 14th night of that, and then the 15th would start a week of the Feast of the Passover that they would observe. But that would be their beginnings. That was the beginning of the months they were leaving Egypt. And that's when they would depart. And we find that they were to remember that. So that's when they began, and we know from that point onward, it was 40 years of wandering, because we find the number starts out in the second year. That's way back when we started studying it. It starts in the second year of them coming out of Egypt. So that's why the 38 years plus the 2 equal 40. Because, as we learn here, when did Aaron die? In the 40th year. And we got things being taking place here in the middle of reaching all these cities. Why is Aaron's situation brought forth? There's a good reason for that. And so we're not going to make your eyes glass over because of all the cities, but they're going to pick up some that will help us realize God commanded this to be written down. He wanted that in history of his people, and we at least take a look at it, and we'll go from there. All right, any comments you want to make before we close? Yes, sir. Well, you cleaned out the enemy, and I guess God would protect them. They're not going to. We've seen it in other places where the hearts of other people will not be coming and try to destroy them. We've seen it happen. So they were protected, but doing God's will. But that's a good point. He let them protect them first, and folds and the children being taken care of. But the enemies have been completely destroyed from there. So that would be helpful in protecting the children too, and the wives. Okay, Lord willing, next week we'll begin on our journey. Okay, thank you.